lazy oaf. Louise sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window at the dull grey sky. The rain had been falling steady for hours, drumming softly against the glass, and inside the small flat, the atmosphere felt heavy. She wrapped her hands around a mug of lukewarm tea, and let out a long sigh. Across the living room, Callum was sprawled on the sofa, controller in hand, eyes glued to the television screen. The flickering light cast shadows over his face, but she barely noticed anymore. The sound of explosions and gunfire from the game filled the room, punctuated by his occasional curses and the crunch of crisps. Louise had lost count of how many times she had begged him to get up, to do something, anything, to help around the house. But every day was the same. She went to work, came home, cooked, cleaned, paid the bills, and there he was, motionless, absent, lost in a world she wasn't part of. She stood up quietly and walked over to the kitchen. The pile of dishes from dinner still sat on the table. She rinsed and stacked them, her movements automatic, her mind elsewhere. The flat was small, but it felt suffocating. She longed for space, for peace, for a partner who would share the weight of living. After tidying the kitchen, she returned to the living room. Callum didn't even look up. She hesitated, then said softly, "Dinner's ready." A muffled grunt was his only reply. She set 2 bowls on the table and called again, louder this time. "Dinner. Can you bring it in here?" He called back without moving. Louise's throat tightened. "It's on the table." He shuffled in reluctantly, sitting down opposite her but not making eye contact. He twirled the pasta on his fork mechanically. "How was the game?" She tried, hoping for some connection. "Good," he muttered. "Got to level 9. She wanted to scream, to shake him into awareness, but all she could do was eat quietly, her appetite gone. Later she found herself back in the kitchen washing up while the TV roared from the living room. She peeked around the corner to see Callum on the sofa again, controller in hand, a packet of crisps abandoned beside him. The volume was turned too high, blaring explosions and shouting. Empty bottles and takeaway boxes cluttered the table. Louise felt a wave of frustration rise up, hot and heavy in her chest. "Callum," she said, voice tight. He barely glanced up. "Yeah? Can you at least take your glass to the kitchen when you're done?" He sighed as if she'd asked the impossible. "Sure, I will." She turned away, tears threatening but not falling. The loneliness pressed on her like a weight she couldn't lift. Days passed in the same pattern. She worked long hours, cleaned, cooked, managed the bills, and came home to him in the same spot, day after day. One evening, rain soaking through her coat, she stopped at the door to the living room. There he was, controller in hand, eyes fixed on a loud action movie. Laughter tracks and gunfire filled the room. Crumbs dotted his lap and the table. She swallowed the anger that surged inside her and said quietly, "Callum." He barely responded. "I can't keep doing this," she said, voice shaking. "Doing what?" he asked, voice lazy. "Everything. I do everything. And you just sit there." He shrugged. "I need time. It's been 8 months. He turned back to the TV, muttering, "I didn't ask to lose my job." "I know," she said, voice breaking. "But I didn't ask to live like this." She left the room, the silence swallowed by the television's noise. That night, lying awake, she felt the cold truth settle in her bones. She was tired of carrying the weight of a life that was meant to be shared. The next morning, she woke early, made tea, and sat at the table staring out the rain-streaked window. She thought about the woman she used to be, full of hope and laughter, and the woman she was now, weary and alone in a crowded room. Callum shuffled in, pouring cereal without looking outside. By midday, she had cleaned, vacuumed, started laundry, and he was back on the sofa, watching reruns and eating crisps. She stood in the doorway, watching the slouching figure, crumbs stuck to fabric, the physical form of inertia. "Callum," she said softly. He looked at her briefly. "Yeah? Do you even see me anymore?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm invisible. Like I could leave and you wouldn't notice until you ran out of snacks." He said nothing. "I'm tired of doing this alone. I need a partner. Not this." He turned back to the screen. I need time, he mumbled. Louise picked up her coat, opened the door, and stepped outside into the cold air. She walked past quiet streets, the buzz of the corner shop, the creaking park swings. The rain soaked her hair, but she kept walking, feeling the weight lift a little with every step. At the footbridge overlooking the river, she stopped. The night was still except for the water flowing below. She thought about the flat, the empty sofa, the man who filled it with silence. She thought about tomorrow, next week, all the weeks ahead. She could demand change. She could leave. She stood there, staring at the empty street, and wondered, what would you do if you were in this situation?